Hello and welcome, all my musical minions, to the Forgotten OneCast. I am your host, CJP. Today we were going to be talking some prog rock. I'll probably still talk some of it. I got a clip that a friend of mine sent me that's really funny. Unfortunately, our guest is not going to be here tonight, as far as I can tell. But hopefully we can get him on another time. For programming notes, next week, we do have Desiree Wright joining us. She's a classically trained pianist who does a lot of video game and anime covers on piano. So she's a fantastic artist, really funny, sweet person. We had her on the Legion of Memers meme stream a couple weeks ago, and just a delight. So hopefully we'll have a fun conversation next week. Then on Halloween, I figured working with the GoldenEye sound fonts, I've had a lot of fun with it, and I wanted to try something a little bit more expansive than the typical sub count ones that I've been doing. So on the 31st, which is Tuesday, at 7 p.m., we're going to do a live stream release of this. The entire Castlevania 1 soundtrack with the GoldenEye sound fonts. So that's even including the little, all clears and the game overs. So it's going to be, I think it's about 18 minutes long total. So short video, but I had a lot of fun working with this, and it's just a fun bit of music to do. So, you can't go wrong with that. It's Castlevania, and it's spooky season. So, it fits perfectly with the motif of the season, if you will. So, let's see here. Also, don't forget that we are an affiliate of Coffee Brand Coffee. So if you're looking for some good brews with no gimmicks, coffeebrandcoffee.com. Use promo code CJP at checkout, and you'll get 10% off your order. So definitely, if you want some really good coffees and teas, and they've got K-cups, they've got regular beans that you can brew. So go check them out, coffeebrandcoffee.com. Great coffee, no gimmicks. Code CJP for 10% off on discount. And also, don't forget, we're a small channel. We're still growing, quite just a little bit under the 500 sub mark. So, if you can, help us out, help a white brother out. Like, comment, and share. And of course, be subscribed. If you're not subscribed, I don't know why you're watching, but join us anyway. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, we had That 70s Rock Fan on a couple weeks ago with Alan Graney Grange, who is a roadie for Grindelwald and several other prog rock bands in the 70s. That was really great to talk with him. I was hoping to get him back on again so we could do a little bit more of the prog rock discussion. So this may be a little bit shorter of a stream tonight, since a lot of what I was going to discuss was going to be back and forth. So, but we'll still keep pushing and moving on. But I did want to share this clip that my good friend John Tulsa, Master Tulsa, in the chat sent to me, and I know I'm going to get dinged by this by Cartoon Network or whoever owns it. I think it's Warner Discovery, but this is a fantastic scene from the show Venture Brothers. If you've never watched it, it's hilarious. It's a great riff on the old Johnny Quest cartoon from the 60s that my dad loved when he was a kid. So this is Dr. Venture introducing his son Roger, who's named after a very specific person, to the joys of prog rock. I do love that show. And he's not wrong. That is kind of your first experience when you listen to prog rock. It does open your mind quite a bit. Just a skosh. So, what I figured I'll do is I do have a couple of memes, actually, that are prog rock related. So I figured I'd show those real quick while we're waiting on Mr. RockFan, if he is coming. I'm not sure if he is or not. So let's take a look here. Where did it go? I know I put it here somewhere. – go. Ah, yes. Prog rock fans be like, 6 more minutes to the good part. My daughters hate when I do this to them because I play something that's 25 minutes long and they're like, no, here it is. Nope, here it is. But there's so much that's so good that you're like, I gotta share it. I gotta share it with the world because this stuff is awesome. We discover more 70s prog rock. What kind of Pink Floyd is this? Now I've heard that before. Like, hey, is that Pink Floyd? No, it's not Pink Floyd. It's as much as I like Pink Floyd, it's better than Pink Floyd. Just a little bit. A progressive rock song is never too long, nor is it too short. It lasts precisely as long as it's meant to. Get off the prog. Although there was times, it can go a little long, but is it ever really too long? No, it's not. It definitely isn't. This one did crack me up quite a bit. The Rock and progressive rock. Oh, The Rock. He used to be funny. But he always wears the same outfit in every movie. I never understood it. Like his movie outfit is literally khaki shirt, khaki shorts. It's like, is that like a writer in his contract that every movie he does, he has to wear the khakis? Is he like Jake from State Farm of action movies? For those who don't know, this is takes a little bit of explaining, but this is Mike Portnoy, formerly of Dream Theater, passing it along to little baby Lars, showing him how to play Dance of Eternity. Which, I think that would 2 seconds of that would have blown his mind. He would be like, I don't know what to do with this. I can't go very fast with this. Most pretentious prog rock bands? That's it's kind of hard to say. I don't know if they were really pretentious. They just wanted to do what they wanted to do, and mainstream like Rolling Stone just didn't care for them. They're just like, oh, this is too hard to understand. Where's my verse and chorus? I need my verse and chorus. If it doesn't have a verse and chorus, I can't get it. Lars can't read music. Yeah, you're not wrong, Jeff. You're not wrong. Record company. No, you can't just musically express yourself through progressive sidelong tracks. It doesn't sell. Greater than 20 minutes. Yeah. Well, some of my favorite songs are the longer ones. Like Awaken off of Going for the One is a fantastic track, and I believe it's like at least 15 minutes. I think that was all the prog rock ones I had. Oh, I had one more. One more for the prog rock memes. Sorry about last night. You took me to a prog concert. It played for 3 hours. Well, I would hope any concert would last at least 2. Because otherwise, it's just, what's the point of going? You're not wrong. You're not wrong. You're definitely not wrong there, Mr. Jeff. So that was the limits of the memes. Because I'd like to play more music on here, but YouTube is they're dumb, super dumb when it comes to sharing music. But let's see. Let me think about it. Some examples of more obscure, not really prog, but the prog bands, because I'm not that steeped in the back catalog, like the iceberg of prog rock bands. But let's see. An example of a song that I really love that no one ever talks about. I'll play a snippet of it. Because it is 7 minutes long. Oh, there's a live version. Let's try this one. As soon as I get through the ads, because yeah, ads, yay! I love ads. Ads are amazing, and you can't ever skip them because YouTube's a bee. All right, let's see. Maybe, hopefully, I won't get dinged too hard for this. We'll play a little bit of it. I can't play South Side of the Sky. Steve Howe is way out of my league. I watched that man in 2009 play with 2 bands and a solo spot in between. That was amazing. All right, so this is a South Side of the Sky. This is a live version, so hopefully we won't get dinged as hard if we're doing this one.
Woo! Thank you. That evening we were sort of getting into a rock and roll state of mind, writing the song about mountain climbing, which is a very dangerous thing to do. But we've all got to climb mountains every day. Woo! A mountain to cross, the sunshine, the mountain sometimes lost, around the south side, so cold that they cried. Well, we were colder on that day, a million miles away. You see from all of eternity. Forward, as my friends only cry, deeper to somewhere we.
They're playing slower than the original. I can understand it in their whole.
On that day, a million miles away, it seemed from all of eternity.
I don't think he hits enough keyboard. Need more. More keyboards. More.
The snowstorm, the stimulated voice, the warmth of the sky.
I don't want to play too much of it because obviously, YouTube doesn't like you just, listening to music because, God forbid. But see, that was from, that would have to have been quite a few years ago. That was 2003. Yeah, because John Anderson left, I'm going to say about 2005 or so, and had never come back, except for the one time they were at the, they were getting inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame after, I think, 25 years of being eligible. 25 years. What the hell? I don't get that. I don't understand that at all. They got a new album too, and it's actually, I mean, I like it, but obviously it's not. Yes, really, because the only person on there from the original, even the one, there's actually nobody on there from the original lineup. I mean, if you really want to go pedantic about it, because it was Tony Banks, Peter. Oh shoot! Now I'm losing his last name. There's Peter Gunn on guitar, Chris Squire, John Anderson, and Bill Bruford. Steve Howe didn't join till the Yes album. And even though he's on the cover of Time and a Word in the US for some reason, I'm not exactly sure why that happened. I'll have to check that out because I love demos and outtakes. I mean, that's why the Beatles anthology was such a big release for me. Because you got to hear all those alternate takes and demos, and seeing how the process changed. Like especially my favorite one on the whole anthology series is the 2 takes of I'll Be Back Again. Because the first take, they're trying it in 6/8, and it's just not working. John's like, he's too old to sing. And so, they stop and they regroup for a little bit, and then they do the next take and do it 4/4, and it works much, much better. So, I do love hearing, outtakes, live as well. You just, you hear different ways that they interpret these songs, from when they're starting to when they're finished products. So those are always fun to listen to. I wonder if they have that on YouTube. Let's see. I think this is the one you're mentioning. Come on, let me skip these freaking ads. I don't care about the dudes from Scrubs. That show's long over. No one cares. I had to pick something up. It was a someone. Or was it someone? Which is more my speed. That's usually what happens to me. Let's share this real quick because I'm actually curious to hear this. I haven't heard this version of it yet. Drugs. Someone's getting head on that album cover. Al Snow reference for anyone.
Take a straight and stronger course to the corner of your life.
This is very.
Take the White Queen
Lot more
so
drums.
fast. She hasn't got time to make you a wife.
I mean, there's broken in that.
Cause it's time and time with your time and his mood is captured for the queen to use. Move me on to any black square. Use me anytime you want.
Yeah, that's where it really sounds
Just
off.
remember that the goal is for us all to capture all we want. Yeah. Oh. Don't surround yourself with yourself. Move on back to squares. Send an instant comment to me. Initial it with loving care.
It's a weird song about chess. It's not near as weird as Furry Head and A Night in Bangkok. Oh, you hear a lot more of the guitar bass. Oh, man.
See no good people turn their heads each day. Society's right up on my way.
I just love the tone you get. It has the bass that
See no good people turn their heads each day. Society's right up on my way.
That's a good version. I'm going to have to remember to keep that one and Tortuga it later. But yeah, that's a really good version. I like that quite a bit. But the other, of course, the great thing about prog rock is it's such a wide range of bands that you could put under that label. But one of the funniest things I've ever seen is this one I'm going to pull up. It's a performance from the Midnight Special. That Came out on October 5th, 1973. And it's quite amazing. Because the guy playing the keyboards in this, I swear to God, is this is who they based Gowron in Star Trek Next Generation DS9 on. Because there's a point he's like got straight up Gowron face. Straight up. It's hilarious looking. But it's also a badass song. And the guitar player shreds like a mad mofo. On a Les Paul of all things.
Yeah, John Hopkins, I really don't think it's talked about enough. It's just this big giant dude playing guitar. Didn't have that. That's what happened in stuff I like that. At least think that on something like that.
Jiminy Christmas. That's just some sweet playing. Just sweet. I love it so much. And actually that whole album is really good. I don't think, again, it's prog rock, so it's a niche genre for a lot of people, but I love that album. The whole album. It's Moving Waves, I believe is the name of it, if I remember right. Focus. I think it's Moving Waves. Why is it not showing all the releases? Where are you? I know I had the freaking album. My dad had it since, before I was born. What's the name of that album? Probably had a different name elsewhere. That's how these things usually worked back then. They have one here, one somewhere else. Rainbow, no, not that one. No, it's not that one. No, it's new. Huh. Well, anyway, fantastic band, fantastic music, and what's his name? The lead singer, Fies Van Leer, he's still playing even to this day. So yeah, they're still rocking and rolling. So you can't fault that kind of dedication to the craft. There was one more I was thinking about, and I don't know if I'd really call them prog as much. Is kind of almost prog metal before prog metal was a thing. But I know if you're here in Tulsa, that you actually will hear this another version of this song on KMOD's morning show because they play a cover version of this. But this is a band, and the only reason I even discovered this band in the first place is because of Roger Dean. I was looking through images of Robert Dean art, and they happened to pull up the album cover for this, and it's it kind of blew my mind how good it was, and just kind of weird though. But the guy's voice is extremely high. Like I thought Geddy Lee sang high. This guy sings high. I'm not sure I'd really consider this prog rock as just more just hard rock, but again, it's a Roger Dean album cover, so I knew I was in for something good.
That morning show. You ever heard the Rosie Scam? Here.
Hey, buddy, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I forgot the start. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. You're
I'm here now. Right, what we got?
This guy's voice.
Oh, I'm having trouble hearing you, CJ. This is very early rush.
That was
It's Budgie. It's Budgie, yeah. Oh, I remember Budgie.
The whole
Yeah.
reason I even discovered them in the first place is I was at a CD store years ago, and I just happened to be looking for Roger Dean art, and I just happened to see the Budgie cover for this album, and I'm like, okay, it's Roger Dean. It can't be bad. If Roger Dean did the cover for it, he usually doesn't do arts for crap.
Indeed. Actually, I've got a signed Roger Dean over there, and I'm looking for somewhere to put it on the wall. It's framed, but I'm got it on the wall yet. But yeah, Budgie, Welsh, of course, a Welsh band. I won't hold it against them, but I think the track I seem to recall was the Crash Course in Brain Surgery is the one I particularly recall. But they were quite proto metal.
Yeah.
In many ways, and like a three-piece group is always tough to fill out the sound, but I never saw them live, but I believe they were pretty effective, like very loud for their time.
I mean, the fact Metallica covered them, which is, that says something, for Metallica to cover a one like that. And like I said, here in Tulsa, in Oklahoma, their morning zoo radio show, or the Big Bad Morning Show, whatever they call it, they use the Metallica cover as their opening bumper.
Of course.
So I'm like, that's just awesome that even though people don't know where it comes from, they're still listening to Budgie, 40 years on.
And I have to say that for all Metallica's faults at certain times, they do a lot of covers, and they do cover a lot of bands that were somewhat overlooked, and they do a great job of it, It's the one I'm thinking of particularly, Am I Evil, which is the Diamond Head song, which they were a great band, probably never got their due either. But they're more metal than prog, of course. It's more of a metal thing. But yeah, Budgie had an interesting lyrical style as well, because I think this the singer was, I may be wrong, I think he was a Christian, and I think he put a lot of that in his vocals, but not in a preachy way. It was more about subjects that gave him a view on in terms of war or current events or whatever.
Yeah.
Rather than them singing about, I mean, there were some songs about booze and sex and drugs and rock and roll, but most of it was, the songs were about something as opposed to that, So I guess you could say that was quite progressive.
Oh, and even Discogs, they list them as a classic rock / prog rock band.
Yeah,
they're kind of right on that edge of, they didn't do the long form songs, but they still didn't do your standard,
sure, and just great titles.
Yeah.
Like Nude Disintegrating Parachutist Woman.
I mean, in fact, that on that album right there, Never Turn Your Back on a Friend, they've got a song called The Biggest Thing Since Powdered Milk.
Oh, right, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so they tried to do things that were different, which I guess is one of the definitions of progressive rock.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be just another Black Sabbath or whatever. So good for them. And minor footnote in history, perhaps, but still a good one.
But yeah, in fact, the album cover, if I can make sure I share the correct screen.
Indeed. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And of course, with that, it wouldn't be an Roger Dean album cover if it didn't go all the way across.
I know. That man was what gatefold sleeves were made for.
Well, yes.
Both sides, open in outside and on the other side, on the inside. There'll always be that great artwork. Yeah, I should probably drag that poster over, just framed. But Roger Dean was at the Kitchener. I used to live in a place called Kitchener, Ontario, and they had a blues festival every year. It was other music as well, but Roger Dean was there one year, just doing a talk and signing posters, and it wasn't because of any particular band that were there or anything. I guess he just felt like going out there and doing that, and it was fascinating. And he did a talk about, well, obviously he was talking about the album covers, but he wanted to talk about these weird houses that he'd, like the tree type houses he would draw, and he'd actually fleshed that whole idea out into habitats that could be built like that. So he was kind of half trying to promote it as a thing that might happen. I don't think I've ever seen them anywhere. But it's little like hobbit treehouse things. It was really
right.
But I mean, it was nice to meet him.
Couldn't be any worse than the dome houses of the 70s.
Yeah, it was kind of sort of heading that way though. But it was very much based upon some of his artwork, and it was fascinating because it was just you got lots of time to talk to him and. About album covers and stuff, and he was, he was quite responsive. I mean, obviously, everybody wanted to talk about Yes albums and those covers, but he did a lot of stuff. I'd forgotten the Budgie. I would have impressed him if I'd taken a Budgie album.
Yep.
But yeah, lovely guy. But it was the weirdest place to see him because it was a blues festival, and I don't think he had any connection to any band playing there. It was quite a neat little festival because a lot of it was free. I like those. Like they would have a 2 paid gigs, like a bigger band. It would maybe be like Los Lobos or Johnny Winter or somebody, and then the rest would be the rest of the festival would be free, open air, free. It was really good. I'd like to go to some more, but I haven't been any near me. So.
I know. And unfortunately, the ticket prices are just so ridiculous now.
Oh, I know. I'm not paying $150, $200 for something. It's crazy.
I'd much rather watch some local indie band.
Yeah,
and help them out than
in a club. Yeah, just a club band for sure. But Prog, Prog's very interesting topic because I know guys that I grew up with that couldn't stand it because they liked metal or hard rock and bluesy stuff. Oh, I don't like all that twiddly crap. And then I knew guys that were absolutely devoted to it. Every prog thing going. I mean, the minute they heard a time signature that wasn't 4/4, they were like in heaven,
Well, like
The-
I don't know if you saw the clip I played at the beginning. I'll play it
I
again.
didn't, yeah,
This is from. You ever watch the Venture Brothers?
it's just exactly what it's like.
I know.
Oh, stream suspended. The stream's just been suspended. It'll be back. We'll wait 30 seconds. It'll be back.
I need a minute.
Yeah.
I need a minute.
But yeah, we got to wait till you're back up again.
Am I down?
Yeah, you're down. Stream suspended. It'll be
Oh,
back.
I probably got dinged.
You did. It'll be back. I'd never seen that clip before. I've seen a lot of. There's a great BBC documentary which I've played a few clips of on my channel, and history of prog type thing, and it's got Bill Bruford talking about. I should save this for the stream, but talking about joining King Crimson, and nobody would ever talk about what the music was supposed to be. Like, you were just supposed to know.
Right.
Well, what time signature is in? What did he just say? It just.
The thing is I'm. It's still showing green on.
Hang on, I need to refresh the screen in case we're back again.
Ugh.
No, it's still stream unavailable. Stream suspended.
Well, dang it.
It should come back. Usually after 30 seconds, it comes back.
Okay. You gotta love YouTube.
You can't. It's difficult to talk about anything if you can't play it.
I know. I mean, it's fair use. We're talking about it.
Okay, I think we're coming back. The chat's back anyway. See, usually when it says suspended, it doesn't mean gone for good. And usually if you wait 30 seconds, it comes back. But this has been more than 30 seconds.
Yeah. Maybe because I played the clip twice. I don't know.
Who knows with these fuckers? Oh, we're back. We're back.
There we are.
Right,
Now
we're
we're
back. And we're back. Yeah, you see, we annoyed the gods of YouTube who hate prog rock.
Well, I have a very special thing for when YouTube bees YouTube. I don't give them just a fuck you. I give them a sponicle fuck you.
That's right. Is that Michael Jackson? No.
Yeah. This is definitely a cheap Party City one because the thumb is like way higher than it should be.
Yeah.
Unless your thumb is like here and jacked up.
I just discovered something amazing about one of my friends today. So I hosted the Rock and Roll Rowdies live stream, which I do every Thursday, and Mal Craggs was one of the roadies that are part of that group. And he said, "Oh, here's my all access pass to the 1986 Grammys," because he was Phil Collins' right hand man at the time, and he went everywhere. And they're sitting in the front row. He said, "Oh, yes, it's right enough. Michael Jackson sat next to me all night." It's like, what, you only just mentioned this now?
This is huge.
That's right.
Oh, right. You just like drop it in casual conversations and like, I just went to the restroom early and I was sat next to Michael Jackson all night.
Michael Jackson was sitting there all night and he was talking because he's got a cleft, and he says Michael's asking him about the cleft in his chin. And he said a year later, Michael Jackson had all that surgery and he had a cleft in his chin, so he thinks he inspired him.
Oh, jeez.
But it's just about like, oh, you only now are you mentioning that you were sitting next to Michael Jackson all night.
What's up, DJ Access? How you doing, man?
So yeah, we were talking a little bit. I mean, it mentioned in the Venture Brothers clip that he showed that he didn't mention it, the album, but it was King Crimson. He just talked about Bill Bruford, Court of the Crimson King. So there's a great documentary, which you can see on YouTube, BBC documentary about prog. I think it's called a movement in 3 parts or something. I don't know. It's quite, but it's full of prog guys like Bill Bruford. That's the one, Prog Britannia. So
yep.
Bill Bruford talks about joining King Crimson, and nobody would ever talk about what the music was meant to be or where it was going to go. You were just supposed to know. So they'd say, "Well, what time's this song in?"
I don't know.
If you ask that, you're out of the band. You're just supposed to know what's going to happen in each song, like because you're supposed to be so good that you know they could go anywhere, and you've got to keep up. So, yeah, very exacting band.
The meme I showed earlier was Mike Portnoy handing off a paper to Lars Ulrich, and it's Dance of Eternity. and of course being angry about it. And I remember when I worked at Guitar Center, we had a Dream Theater DVD that we'd play on the TV in the background, and we had other Marco Miniman and some other drummers and stuff that we'd play. And he actually, there's a section of that video where Portnoy sits down, and you can kind of hear the music in the background, but he's got a metronome programmed to, and a paper list, like a full A4 paper of all the time signature changes that happen in this song.
Because they'd just be suggestions as well. It could be.
Yeah. I was like, how the heck do you count this?
I know, and like 7/8 time and whatever. I mean, it always blew my mind that Pink Floyd did Money in 7/8 time, and I could never get the. I said, where there's something missing here.
I do like 7/8 actually. I do quite like it.
Yeah, it grows on you after a while, but it somehow they make it swing. Which is weird because you wouldn't think it would, but I guess it's a jazzy thing. It kind of swings a bit,
What's like part of Supper's Ready? That's literally called Apocalypse in 9/8.
In
takes the
9/8
song out to the end.
So I guess in prog rock bands, drummers are almost musicians.
Yeah,
almost.
Hey, I always tell people I'm not a drummer. I'm a percussionist.
A percussionist. Oh, I found that budgie Roger Dean. I found that cover. I had a collection of downloaded images of Roger Dean covers, and there's at least 2 budgies in there. In fact, he must have done 3. Sorry, I'm just looking at it myself here, but yeah, he did some incredible stuff. He did Uriah Heep, some early Uriah Heep stuff too. But
the other thing a lot of people don't know is that Roger Dean also did some logos for video games.
Okay, yeah. So
like Tetris, the Tetris logo. I mean, up until I think about 5 years ago, the Tetris logo was his.
I didn't know that.
In fact, there's another one. It was a company, I think it was a studio in England. I'm trying to remember. I got to pull up their logo actually. If you see the logo, you'll understand.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's incredible. Didn't know that.
And if I can find one that's actually a good size, because YouTube, Google for some reason likes to do all the small ones first.
Yeah,
I prefer them big.
Big, long, and girthy. Yes.
Okay, here we go. I found it. Let me go back here. Present. Share tab. At some point, I need to get a producer.
Oh, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. It's just you're trying to do all this stuff, and here we go. Yeah,
this was a developer in England that Sony ended up buying out in the late 90s, called Signosis. That's really a Roger D logo.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful.
So he dabbled in quite a bit. Of course, he always did great typefaces that were very distinct but still very legible for the most part.
Yeah, he's an incredible talent, really. I mean, my early teenage years were fueled by things like Roger Dean covers. There's I'm just trying to remember the name of it. So it's funny when you get prog stuff leaking into pop music. This is one of the things I remember from the prog special I did way back when I started my channel. Pete Sinfield, who wrote all those lyrics for these King Crimson songs, ended up having a huge hit with a song he wrote for Bucks Fizz, British pop group called The Land of Make Believe. and it was just like, what is this? This is one of the prog's greatest lyricists, and he's doing this pop thing for The Land of Make Believe. I was just playing a bit of it there. I should really play it for you, but it's so. I thought, really, really, but he must have made a fortune out of it. But yeah, he wanted to hit.
Like Mark Mothersbaugh from Devo.
Yeah,
he did he did the theme for Rugrats, the cartoon.
Oh, that's right. Because he got into movies.
Yeah, you got to compose it because he also did the theme for Eureka on Sci-Fi.
Oh, right, yeah. You know, I heard Yes's Roundabout in something the other day, and I'm trying to remember what it was.
It became a meme.
Yeah.
There's actually a meme that uses Roundabout that's hilarious.
Yeah, I might have seen that, but there was a movie we were watching the other day, and it was totally out of nowhere. They started playing Yes's Roundabout. I went, come on. Who plays that in a movie? It was maybe it was even a Korean movie or something. I thought, that's Yes.
Mm-hmm. But it started with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's a Japanese anime, and I think it was in their second season when they would go to credits. They would play the intro to Roundabout, and then right when the beat drops after the guitar intro, that's when the To Be Continued pops in. And the people started using that for memes. So when something bad was about to happen, right when the bad thing happened, they would pause it and throw that To Be Continued on it.
Yeah, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Yeah, jeez. I have seen that now you mention it. Yeah, but it's just weird to hear Yes in anything normally.
Really, honestly, the best use of Yes in a movie that I can remember was actually in a trailer for a movie called Buffalo 66.
Oh, I know that movie.
Christina Ricci.
Vincent, no, is it Vincent?
Vincent
the guy's name. Yeah.
Or not
no, it's
shoot, what's his name?
Not Vincent. It's not Vincent Gallo. Vincent Gallo, yeah. Christina Ricci, Mickey Rourke. Yeah, I remember that. So they used it in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't be surprised because Yes, we're a huge band, still are a huge band.
But they were timing because it was pretty much all still footage. They were timing all the changes to the music. It was almost like a music video in a way, but of course the trailer stops when the lyrics do. So it's really just that intro as the trailer.
Yeah. Yes, are an interesting band. It is one of the bands that I really struggled to get into back in the 70s. I found Genesis much more accessible, and I really had to work at it with Yes. I don't know what it was. It just didn't, because it didn't fit that normal blues-based rock template.
Mm-hmm.
I struggled to get into it. I'm talking about when I was 12 or 13, of course, you know. I mean, even Genesis are a little bit more, particularly from Selling England onwards, a little bit more of a pop sensibility built in somewhere in there. Whereas Yes were like, to me, it was like music from another planet.
Mm-hmm.
Which in a sense it was, with you know, Starship Troopers and stuff. There's a lot of spacey music on there.
Well, when you're talking about, you know, people who love rock and people who hate rock, and there really doesn't seem to be an in-between on it. My sisters are a prime example because, you know, she's older than me, but my dad played the same music for both of us. She hates prog rock, can't stand it. But that's also because she didn't have a great relationship with my dad because she's my half sister. He wasn't a real dad. So, you know, they had a, you know, adversarial relationship, you know, early on. So she kind of took that as a negative and kind of put it on the music. But yeah, she doesn't like Yes or anything like that.
Yeah, and I was the third kid in the family. My older brother and sister were a little bit older. They were much more into, I don't know, let's say the Eagles and stuff like that. So a band like Yes was completely foreign territory to them. So I didn't get any influence. You know, I didn't hear any of that stuff in the house. I heard friends maybe playing it because you couldn't hear it on the radio either. I mean, 1975 or 6, you weren't hearing Yes on the BBC. Well, you might in the weekends, I guess, but you know there was limited channel choices in the UK in that era, so you weren't hearing a lot of the prog stuff. You know, you're barely hearing Genesis. You might hear "I Know What I Like" or something like that, but you wouldn't hear. You definitely never hear King Crimson or any of those bands. So you had to really go looking for it, you know, and hope that maybe a friend was into something that, and you could, oh, I'll listen to that, because you weren't going to spend money on buying a double Yes album unless you were convinced you wanted to get it because it was expensive.
That next one where advantage I think the US did have when it came to radio is when the FM band first came out, there really wasn't any regulation on it. So stations were able to play pretty much what they wanted as long as they were able to get the bandwidth. So you had a lot of those early radio stations that on the FM band were playing prog rock and playing a lot of the stuff that you wouldn't hear on the top 40 stations.
And it suited the format because you could then play the whole side of an album, which for prog, of course, is very important. You can't just drop into halfway through a Yes album in that era. You know, you could later when they became a more of a pop rock band, but you couldn't then just drop in halfway through. So I'll just play a bit of this. You know? Hey, I'll just play half of this Mike Oldfield album.
Yeah.
You know? So that you could then they could just put the whole side of an album on, which was great, you know. But yeah, it's hard stuff to hear. It was definitely the eclectic side of things. I mean, you weren't going to hear that in pop radio, any of that.
No, and that's where I think record stores were so important back then, because you were able to just browse, you know, thousands of albums you would have never heard on the radio, but you saw those album covers and you just become intrigued because you're like, ooh, what is this? I don't understand what I'm seeing.
I felt like a grown up when I looked at those in the store. Hey, look at me! I'll put down this Slade album and I'll go over here and look at this stuff. Oh my god, this is a triple album. Oh, you know.
Well,
I'm so grown up.
Those album shops were a lot like, you know, the comic book stores, you know, for the nerds, because you could just sit around and talk music all day.
And that was my nerd thing. I wasn't a comics guy. I was a music nerd with a bit of science fiction on the side. So I'd go into, there was maybe 12 or 13 record stores in Edinburgh at the time. Let's say 1973, 74. I'd go in and I'd spend all day going between them and looking everything they had, everything. All the albums, all the singles, all whatever. I wouldn't leave a corner unturned, and then I'd ask them to play stuff, and what's this? I've never heard of this before, you know, whatever. That was my whole day. I'd maybe only buy one album because that's all the money I had. But,
right.
But I was like, this is great. Look at these albums. I've never seen. You got a whole load of new stuff in. Oh my God, what's this? You know, yeah, well, like the same way you guys look at comics. Yeah. I was just, I couldn't wait to browse through that stuff. And, I don't know if I get it's just, there's no thrill in that anymore. I mean, there are still record stores. I mean, there's a great one in the Calgary near me. Great, and I enjoy looking through it, but I couldn't spend all day looking through it now. I'd be like, yeah, I'm tired. It doesn't have the same excitement, which is weird.
And, you know, back then the people usually that were working there were a lot of times were musicians that were trying to make it or something, you know, they were knowledgeable. It's like when I worked at Guitar Center, you know, half the time, you know, almost all of us working there were musicians.
Yeah.
So we would talk music and gear all day at work.
Yeah, that's a great way to I mean, I did work in a record store briefly when I was 16 for about 6 months, and it was fantastic. It wasn't a big record store, it was a very small one, but still, I could play whatever I wanted all day long. It was great, except for the fact that the owner used to get pissed off that I'd put stuff on that wasn't going to sell to the kids that were coming in to buy pop singles, you know.
Right.
I had to make some concessions occasionally, but yeah, I'll just stick this album on. What's that? I wasn't that far at my taste. I mean, for me, prog in the sort of mid-70s, the extent that I got into it would be very much your Genesis, Yes, and then Rush when they started to become more popular. I wasn't that into the obscure stuff. Now that I know a lot more of that, so you've got bands like Stackridge and Van der Graaf Generator and all those other bands that never made it as big, but I find, I'm into them now and I find them quite interesting. Then it would have been, who's that? Never heard of them, So I don't know. I think it takes maturity to get into prog.
It does. Well, and like I didn't really know about Sparks until the documentary came out, and I saw a trailer for it. I'm like, well, this is intriguing.
It was a good film.
Like, I recognized the look, but I never had really listened to him. And then I started listening to him, like, holy crap, this stuff's fantastic.
It is. I actually had, because they had that big hit when I was a kid, This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew them really well from that at the time. And a couple of years later, when I could afford to buy records, I started buying their albums. Luckily, a lot of them were in the bargain bins. So Come On to My House and stuff like that. And I thought, these guys are great. I like that strand of music. I guess I would call it more like prog pop almost. Some people call it art school music.
Yeah.
Quirky bands that weren't easy to pigeonhole. So they could do rock, they could do pop, they could do prog, they could do their own thing. So guys like another band, the early 10cc stuff, I love that. That would fit into that category too. Maybe even some Roxy Music. Bands that were hard to pigeonhole.
Yeah, Devo, I'd put in that.
Devo would then be a slightly later, but in that category too. Here's a box of bands you can never pigeonhole. But one thing they've probably all got is that even if they're not doing full-on prog, they have prog elements to it. They're trying to do something different, even if it's within the confines of a pop song. Which I did. Yeah, Sparks were very like that, very idiosyncratic. And
I definitely don't think that Rob could get away with that mustache today.
No, I've seen them play. I've seen a few videos of them recently, and he's still got a tash. But I don't think it's quite as.
No, it's more the. It's more the not even Marx Brothers. It's more just like a thin line.
Yeah, he's got the thin line now. But when they were on top of the pops doing This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us, it was the full on Adolf tash, and of course he did that.
Yeah, that look. Which I didn't realize until years later after watching the documentary that the video for Coming Up by Paul McCartney, that he's dressed as Rob.
Yeah, he's in there as well.
He's doing
That's right. He was so well known for that, and it turns out he's actually quite a nice, quietly spoken guy, but he gave this weird image of he never smiled and never spoke. And
I loved in the documentary, he talked about when he wrote music, he didn't care if he wrote it that his brother could sing it. Like, I'm just writing the music. If you can sing it, fine. If you can't, okay.
Yeah. I really liked their electronic stuff they did in the late 70s. Number One Song in Heaven, Beat the Clock, stuff like that. Again, that was them experimenting with something new, which is a prog thing too. Hey, let's ditch all those old instruments and let's get these new synths and let's try to do something with that. They were one of the first acts to really do that in a pop milieu, I mean, before then it took guys like Kraftwerk with rooms full of things plugged in and whatever. So bands, Sparks quickly picked up on that much more portable electronic keyboard thing and did some stuff. So I admired that. They weren't afraid to change. And in fact, a lot of prog stuff ended up going into the electronic side of things, like Tangerine Dream and so on. So I guess the keyboard guys that ended up liking later in the 80s synth pop bands like Depeche Mode or whatever, they actually sneakingly liked some of the prog stuff that came before it, because those bands were using a lot of electronic keyboards.
Yeah.
Albeit in the day they did it, it was Keith Emerson's Moogs and
yeah,
huge. Like, I remember because the rowdies that I hang out with, a lot of them had roadied for bands that had like Moogs and stuff. It's just a bloody nightmare. It's a banks of equipment and heavy shit as well that they had to take everywhere.
Well, I still, again, I love the story of Rick Wakeman getting so fed up with his Mellotrons that he took them out to a field, coated them in petrol and just lit them on fire.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done with these.
I know, it's just like carting that shit around. It's just and then again came the Casios, you could do it with one finger,
Yeah.
But yeah, polyphonic synthesizers became easy to do. I think my favorite Rick Wakeman story is, which we've talked about before, I think, is when he was fed up being in Yes. He was at the end of his tenure, felt he was the outsider in the band, and they're noodling away in some 20-minute thing, whatever, and he got bored and he was hungry, so he ordered an Indian takeout to be delivered, and he sat eating it on the keyboard, and the rest of it, I said that was probably the end of my time in the band. Yeah. They're all looking at me, what's the smell?
There are some, as much as I like Tales from Topographic Oceans, that what I think is when they really were kind of indulging way too much.
Just a little, yeah.
I mean, when you've got 4 songs and each one's on the side of an album, you might have gone too far.
Yeah, I mean, they're attempting to create the classical music of their era, and I can see why they would want to do that. But at the same time, there's what's the line between musicianship and indulgence?
Yeah.
Maybe they crossed it a few times, which is why that's not one of my favorite Yes albums. In fact, I'm much more of a fan of Going for the One.
Oh, yes.
Because they got back to a little bit more sort of almost rock, individual rock songs. And then, from then on, especially when Trevor Rabin joined, they became a completely different thing, which is great. Nothing wrong with that material. I love it. But I think Going for the One's my favorite Yes album, which probably not a lot of people would agree with that. But that's
Awaken is still one of my favorite tracks of all time.
Yeah. I think it's a great album. I mean, the beauty of Wondrous Stories, which was a big hit single in the UK, actually top 3 hit single, which was unusual for Yes. It's funny, it was around the same era that Genesis had a big hit with Follow You, Follow Me. So I think these bands were kind of tiring a little bit of the being expected to do 3-hour epics and just wanted to knock out some songs for a change. And it worked for Yes on that album. I mean, Going for the One's a brilliant track. The actual title track it's got all these different soaring pieces in it where each instrument's trying to kind of climb above each other one. I love it. And the vocals, John was never sounded better to me on that. But do you like the John and Vangelis stuff?
Yes, I do actually. I thought that was great because
I'm a big fan.
I really like Vangelis ever since the Chariots of Fire soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time I had heard him.
Yeah.
Again, I'm also I'm only in my 40s, so
yeah.
That came out.
I'm a little bit older. Yeah.
I think I was like 6 or 7 when that movie came out.
Yeah.
But that song was everywhere.
Oh yeah, and I love the John and Vangelis material. I think it's beautiful stuff. I don't know what it is, but the atmosphere in it is incredible. Like, it's warm and atmospheric, and if you put that on and just listen to it, it's one of those albums you put it on, listen, and it kind of takes you somewhere else. It's especially if you're listening to like Darkened Room, and it creates a whole world, whole atmosphere, and it's very hard to do that.
It is.
I have a sneaking liking for Vangelis's first band, though, Aphrodite's Child.
Oh God, that's
the Greek prog rock band. The singer and bass player was a guy called Demis Roussos, who went on to have a number of hits in the 70s as just a solo singer. And they were nothing like prog rock. They were like, and he was a mountain of a man. He'd stand there with a big white robe on. That was Demis Roussos' image. But he actually started as the bass player in this prog rock band. Vangelis was the keyboard player. Very, very beautiful songs if you ever listen to their stuff. They did a couple of concept albums, and admittedly, they recorded them in London, even though they were Greek. They knew they had to go to London to do stuff, but not a bad band. So Vangelis had a great grounding in that.
And oddly enough, my dad's favorite Yes album was Relayer.
Yeah.
He really loved that album for some reason. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I mean, Gates of Delirium is a great track. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I've always found them a little bit of an acquired taste. I would say that I love Genesis a lot more. And I don't know why that is. I think maybe they're just more accessible in most instances. Even their earlier stuff, which was longer form and more proggy, was still quite accessible, I think.
I do love the fact that I don't know if you ever watched Top Gear when it was Clarkson, May, and Hammond hosting.
All the time, yeah.
And the way he would torture Hammond with Genesis.
So yeah, I find them more a little bit more accessible. So a band like, if we take a band like Pink Floyd, would you could say they were a prog band?
They're close. They're like on the cusp of it, but I wouldn't consider them full prog. They're still more this your side. I really more consider them the psychedelic side because that's really where they started.
So yeah, that's interesting. That's probably what I would have thought too. They were classed in the prog group. They'd be grouped with prog, but I really think they were more of a psychedelic rock band who were great at making concept albums, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're prog.
Right, because Sgt. Pepper's is a concept album, but I wouldn't consider it a prog album.
No, I think it's proto prog, perhaps. I mean, the Strawberry Fields Forever, for instance, probably launched 1,000 bands into trying to do noodly prog stuff. So I think proto prog there, like the Beatles, they were in on early on a lot of different styles, but no, it may be a concept album. It's not full on prog rock yet.
But
I think we had a couple of years to go before you'd start to get to that era.
Just a little bit. Because they broke up before prog even really became a thing.
That's right, yeah. And they certainly didn't stick around in that era doing that kind of stuff for long. I mean, you're talking like a year or two that they did material like that. And then with the White Album, they drastically went back to blues rock, pop stuff and folky stuff. They were almost the antithesis of Sgt. Pepper on the White Album.
Did you ever listen to Let It Be Naked?
Oh, it's my favorite version of Let It Be. Love it, yeah.
It's so stripped down. Because that's what I understand what the original concept was. That they were just going to do a strip down. We're a 4-piece with Billy Preston coming in, to add some keyboards. But this is all we're doing. And then Phil Spector went in and added all that wall of sound stuff to it. Yeah,
there was meant to be no overdubs. Absolutely no overdubs. Or at least no overdubs of additional instrumentation. And for whatever reason, I guess it wasn't working, and they were in a bad way personally with all of them. But getting Billy Preston and kind of saved their bacon a little bit because they were definitely on the outs, and they behaved around him. But then when all that fell apart, they just kind of, I don't know how. I think it might have been Alan Klein brought Phil Spector in. And John was quite happy because he loved Phil Spector. He was quite happy to bring him in and say, just take that pile of shit and do something with it. Because Phil Spector's going to Phil Spector, isn't he? Can I have another choir over there, please?
Well, that also takes a very different meaning these days, but
that's right. Yes, careful. Should be careful what we say. But
down once tonight.
I love Let It Be Naked way better than I love the actual Let It Be original album. And in fact, it's on my list of to be a downer, but the Let It Be Naked version of Long and Winding Road is on my list of things they've got to play at my funeral. So I want to make everyone weep.
I decided at my funeral there's going to be a whoopee cushion on every seat and everyone has to sit down at once.
I'd like to think I could have a funeral like Graham Chapman of Monty Python's. He was a complete and utter bastard. John Clean's giving him shit for 10 minutes.
I still remember the live when they did Live at Aspen thing, and they
Mm.
were coming out for an interview, and this would have been in the 90s, and they brought out an urn and put Graham Chapman's face on it.
That's right.
And then at one point, Terry Gilliam kicks it over.
That's right.
And so they come out and actually bring out a dustbuster. Over
Yeah, shit. Graham's in the dustbuster. Yeah, I just hit that funeral. Was just one of the funniest things ever. Oh god, because that's what Graham said. This is what Graham would have wanted.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He was guys like the Pythons were kicking around the fringes of prog too, with some of the musicians they hung out with, and their involvement, like Neil Innes's involvement, who did a lot of Python music, was in the Bonzo Dog Doodah band, and they did all this idiosyncratic stuff, which could somewhat be called medieval retro prog pop. You know, it's weirdly you can't pigeonhole it, but the canyons of my mind.
Well, I mean, Eric Idle and George Harrison were really good friends.
Oh yeah,
Finance, Holy Grail.
Ruttles. And then the Ruttles, of course, came out of that.
Yeah.
Which is going to be a subject of one of my future streams in the next couple of weeks. The Ruttles.
I do love Ruttles. I mean, in that shows you how good they are at not only comedy but actually music, because the Ruttles parodies are fantastic music.
Oh, great! And then there's stuff on the Archaeology album, which they did in response to Anthology,
right?
Which is, you can't put your finger on it and say it's parodying a certain Beatles song. It's just parodying a certain sound or attitude or lyric. And so the songs stand on their own as a result. It's not like, oh, well, there's a version of Help. They're not quite like that. It's just a feeling that the Beatles kind of sounded a bit like that here. But the song stands on its own by the Ruttles. You know?
Right. Did you ever hear of a show called Your Money or Your Gun?
I don't think I have.
It was an Australian comedy show, but the end credits, they would do a cover of Stairway to Heaven, but as different bands.
Oh, right.
There's one by the Beatniks who do Stairway to Heaven in the style of the early Beatles. It's like, there's a lady who showed all that glitters is gold.
I love that though. I love that. That's so funny.
One with the Doors, and it's like, and she's buying a stairway to heaven.
Yeah. I love that. You ever heard?
Genius to take one song and parody it this many different ways.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff like that by other people parodying Beatles stuff in different styles, and some of it's incredible. I've got a whole album of a Turkish band doing it in the style of a Middle Eastern Turkish music. It's a Beatles album with all the songs with it sound just like they're from Turkey. It's just really neat.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you.
We've gone a bit over today of our normal time, but just wanted to make sure that we had enough time to talk.
Oh, no, sorry I was late, mate, but this has been great, and we certainly would go to do more. But I want to ask you something before we go. What would you say is the most overlooked prog band or album that you can think of that people should really listen to that haven't heard?
That's a hard one.
Yeah. If you don't have an answer, it doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, Islands by King Crimson. In the Court of the Crimson King overshadows that album every time.
Well, that one's one of the all-time classics, yeah.
But Islands is a fantastic King Crimson album because it's still in that era of Greg Lake and the early King Crimson, so it still has the same style, but obviously it's not that particular album.
That's a good choice, yeah, because many people know the first album, and then they may know some of the sort of later 80s Robert Fripp, King Crimson, Adrian Belew type stuff. Yeah, they Bill Bruford, they might not know. I mean, there's a ton of stuff in between those. Hell, they broke up and got back together about 5 times.
Sounds like the band in that Monty Python sketch, Rock Notes.
Oh, yeah.
They played the dead fish, and they came back together as a lead fish. And
that's right.
Green, the monkey.
So you can just see Robert Fripp going, shit, it's Tuesday, it's time to break up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that one,
choice.
I Drama from Yes.
Drama.
The one with Trevor Horn.
I saw them on that tour with Trevor Horn, and And Jeff Downs, yeah, I saw that tour.
Such a good album. It's because it
It
is
is.
still sounds like Yes, but it's not Yes.
I really enjoyed the gig. It is a good album, and the gig was great. And I don't recall the audience screaming for John Anderson and whatever. It was like, no, let's give them a chance. Let's listen, you know. And of course, who knew Trevor Horn was going to be such a big producer? But like huge producer. That's a great choice, mate. Yeah, no, I think for me, if I was to pick a band that I wish people would know a bit more about and listen to, it would be a band called Stackridge. English prog rock band called Stackridge. They did an album with George Martin producing. They did some really, and again they had that weird, very English pastoral thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
They'd sit in deck chairs playing banjos and stuff. It was like it wasn't straight on rock. It was weird. It was so very not rock.
Yep.
But lovely stuff. And then they later on, two of the guys, Andy Warden and what's the other guy's name? Andy Davis and James Warden were the two guys. They formed the Corgis, who had a huge hit with a couple of songs. If I Had You was one, and Everyone's Got to Learn Sometime, which was covered by, I think, Beck or somebody later. It's like, everybody's got to learn some. So they had a spin-off skinny-tied new wave pop thing going on. And then went back to Stackridge years later, and they were the first ever band to play at Glastonbury. They opened the very first Glastonbury, yeah. So Stackridge is the band I would recommend. But be prepared; they're not going to rock out.
Well, I've listened to enough of it over the years. I can hang with that.
Yeah.
Again, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, mate.
You know, again, I could always, have these discussions because it's just we're talking about music. I mean,
it's great to just sit and it's great to just sit and rap about it, and talk about it because how often do we get to do that, in this sphere?
Exactly.
I mean, I'm on a lot of shows, but most of them they don't want to talk about music. So
yep, they want to talk about all the pop culture stuff. And I was like, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about real music.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was the nerd music. I was the music nerd back in my days.
Hey, I was a band geek. I mean, you can't get any more music nerd than that.
That's right, mate. Yeah. No, this is fun. We'll do it again sometime for sure. And I got to get you over into my channel too.
Oh, definitely. Anytime.
Yeah.
But I also want to thank everyone who did show up in the chat. Master Tulsa, DJ Axis, Jeff Carrico, me, you,
me and you, and a dog named Boo.
We're a small channel, but we're mighty.
Small, but girthy, I would say. We're very girthy.
Well, yeah.
Girthy.
Again, remember, next week, we'll have Desiree Wright on, classical pianist. That's going to be a fun conversation. And then the week after that, it's almost confirmed, but not quite. But there's he actually runs sound for the church I play at. He's put out an album of kind of experimental, almost prog-ish kind of music. The album's called ORNG. His name is Bjork Larkinson.
Okay.
He's should be on the next week. So
good for him.
We'll get that in, because that was the whole point of this channel. Is I want to talk music. I want to talk people that aren't getting out there in the mainstream.
Of course. Yeah.
The YouTube algorithm is going to bury them because they're not paying them the money.
The way it buries all of us.
Well, thank you for being here, GJ.
Yeah, thank you, DJ.
Because he does some great synths music, that game style music that's so much fun. And then also remember on 31st at 7, we'll be doing the Castlevania release for Halloween. So we'll do the full soundtrack for that. And again, like I say every week, just keep making music. That's all we need. We just need more music. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will see you next week.